And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Landria, award-winning writer of the book The Rooftop Christmas Tree, which is based on a true story and has won 2 awards. It is a Hallmark and Amazon Prime television movie. Besides writing books and movies, she's an internet influencer, spiritual teacher, internet business expert, and today we'll be talking about her book, Breakthrough Fear, Your Spiritual Butt Kick. Landria, thank you for joining me and welcome.
It's great to be here. And I was just telling before we started that you're one of the few people I ever watch on YouTube besides Greg Braden. And one of the nicest hosts. So I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate that. And we're excited to have you. And before we get into butt kicking, can we start with how you went from being an investment banker into a spiritual writer?
So what I really want to talk about today is things that I would never have revealed to anybody, much less on YouTube. If you'd have told me that, 20 years ago, I'd say you're insane. But I thought it was time to tell people about my own journey and what's going on out there right now, because we are in what people call the matrix. And I wanted to explain that because we're all equal, beautiful light beings with unlimited powers. And what we're in right now is just unconsciousness with what I call veils. I was one of those people that came here with not as many veils. When I say veils, we talk about dimensions and energy fields and all this stuff, and nobody really has all those answers. But I feel like some of us come here with a little bit more connection to that world out there. I know you do a lot of near-death experience interviews. And people go to that other side and they get to see what we are, and they come back with information, usually with some kind of abilities. Because when you cross over, you break through, you go into that space, and then you come back in, and you're more connected to that space that everybody here actually has access to. So I'm going to share some things about my journey that I have actually accessed that space. And I want to share with everybody that they can too, because I think most of us do what I did, and that's you sort of fall into life. You go into careers and relationships, and you just sort of go along with things because be and do, and we're told no a lot when we're kids. And I always say, why do children see fairies and ghosts and all these other things, and then they lose that? What happens? The veils start to come down because we go into density. We're told no. And so we back off from that space and we go further into density. And fewer of us are feeling comfortable about talking about that when we're younger because we're discouraged. We're told it's crazy. And we're going now, unfortunately, into an era where we're realizing that's real stuff. That's not made up. It's not crazy. And what's crazy is the density that we live in when we have access to this amazing field, unlimited field. So I spent actually 20 years as an investment banker in private equity. And so hopefully you can't hear the hurricane repair going on out here. I was in private equity, and I was on private jets with, working with pro athletes and celebrities on entertainment deals. And it was exciting, but it was so stressful. And Jeff, I so couldn't relate to that world. It's so money driven and very corrupt. I have to be honest, it was corrupt. And there's a lot of good people in there, but it's like politics. If you don't play the game, you don't get to play at all. And so after 20 years, I went through a series of events, and my whole life I felt very connected to that space out there and information. I'd had decades of dreams that were me on another planet. It was definitely not planet Earth. And we all say dreams, what are dreams? Well, now I know what dreams are. They're definitely a reflection of things that we should be paying attention to. And those dreams were always repetitive. And basically, it was not a pleasant experience. Um, we were always under, there was always alien spacecraft and things that I had never watched movies about or watched anything on YouTube. We didn't have YouTube back then. And I just sort of lived with that, this weird, strange, uncomfortable dreams. And then after about 20 years, I went into a really high state of awakening. And I just felt like I was almost outside my body. It was almost difficult to talk to people because I realized, and I didn't know what was happening to me. I realized my energy field was really expansive. And when you go into that space, you see things differently, you experience things completely differently, and you go into a state of what I call beyond love. And we can go into these spaces. A lot of times we don't even know what that is. We're not trained on any of this stuff. And I went into a series of events. I went through a divorce. Wasn't nasty, but I went through a divorce. Then my mother died a few months later. Then my dog died a few months later. Then my dad died a few months later. My brother died a few months later. My cousin died a few months later. I mean, and then my cat, my stray cat, got killed by coyotes. It was like boom, 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 boom. And I thought, I'm next. At some point, I'm next. So, where do we go from here? And I dealt with all of these things. And I dealt with it in a different way that most people do. And I realized, wait a second, my whole life I've handled that way. And I think it's because I have fewer veils. I don't think of endings, I don't think of loss. And even though I experience those feelings, I don't react to it the same way other people do. And I've spent my whole lifetime doing things that people say are impossible or one in a million shot. I've heard that my whole life. Like, I went out for a scholarship on Capitol Hill. I was a writer on Capitol Hill, and the program was closed. Don't even apply, Landria. And I did anyways, and I got it. Somebody who was in the position left, and they called me. I tried out for NBA cheerleading. There were 2 slots, and there were like 2,000 girls trying out. I can't even do a backflip, and I got it. Of course I did. And it got to be a joke with my friends. It's like, how are you doing all this stuff? I mean, I found the diamond ring, piles of money. I mean, it just goes on and on and on because I don't see limitations. I see probabilities. So if there's one probability, I always say, why not me? In fact, the odds go up because most people think they can't do it or can't get it. So they don't even try, which makes the odds even better for people like me. And I thought, I can teach people this. What's the difference between me and somebody else? It's that I don't have the fear. I experience it, but I don't react to it. And fear is the biggest barrier to manifesting the things you desire because everything that you manifest is not your uh, mantras or, you light a candle and you say the right things. If you don't believe it, you're putting out that emotion, and that's a frequency. Everything's frequencies. And so you're tuning into rock and roll and you want classical music and you're never going to hit it. You got to go into that frequency, and that's not an easy task. How do we go into that state of happiness and excitement? And no matter what your situation here, how do I go into that feeling that I already have it? And that is a big task for us. However, every single person has access to that. So when I went through these series of events, I'd accomplished so many amazing things in my life. I got scholarship overseas. I worked in Germany and did some amazing things. And I thought it's time for me to go after my real dreams. And I always was a writer, and I wanted to write books. And so I had this foot that kept swelling up. I'd had a surgery on my one foot that I'd crushed, and my other foot was starting to bother me. And it was so bad that every morning, if I put my foot down on the ground, you know, it was like searing pain, but, I go running on it anyways. And I finally one day I said, I'm done. I'm done with the career. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm done with all this stuff. I'll go get the operation too. I'll go fix the foot. And I just really sort of let go, of everything. And that's called faith. Not always easy to do. But so that night I was in bed and I was I felt something moving on my foot and I heard this big pop and I literally I don't know, I can't do it if I tried. My big toe, which was the problem, was being moved around and I can remember in my sleep going, "Who's moving my big toe?" I was aware that something was moving my toe. And so I sort of went back into a deep sleep, and when I woke up, it was completely healed. To this day, zero pain. And I thought, that was a spontaneous healing that I can't explain. I realized we're getting messages constantly, and that was I was going in the wrong direction. And when I solved that little problem, the foot was healed. And I'm not saying that will happen for everybody, but we discount how connected we are because we're just one thing. So I decided I was going to get trained online to create businesses because I wanted to be remote. I wanted freedom. So I got trained. I ended up being one of the top people for this one program, teaching people how to change their lives basically through creating their own businesses. Former investment banker, now I have online training. And I had to start a YouTube channel because I was advertising. And I thought, what am I going to talk about? And I realized, wait a second, I have a lifetime of experiences that I can teach people how to go after those goals. Because if you don't change this and you keep going up after these goals that you can't figure out why it's not happening, a shift has to take place. And I realized fear never goes away. To the day we leave here, fear is going to be there because that's what we signed up for. That's where the lessons are. It's the challenges that we signed up for. And we keep trying to avoid that. And so I teach people breaking through it is one of the most powerful things you can do. You accept it, you get the lesson from it, you break through it, but it no longer controls you. So I started to talk about that. And all of a sudden, I started to get more views. And then I created my course, Breakthrough Fear. And that's been, for a few years, I've had 5-star reviews on that and changing people's lives in miraculous ways. But the first thing that we do, Jeff, isn't to talk and say certain things. We have to go at the root of why your fear is there. Where's yours coming from? Because you have to change that story, not just the story, but the belief behind it. And so that's where people transform. They change the story because now they understand it and it makes sense. So that's basically been my journey. I mean, got a lot of other stuff. I still have had many of my dreams of being in other places. And I thought, this is real stuff. I do believe that I came here with fewer veils and that I have a purpose. I don't think there's anybody who's above another person. We talk about the chosen ones, or I think we are all equal beings with different journeys. And everybody, like I said, has this ability to break through. You could literally change your life today. Miracles. We have had spontaneous healings, literally on calls. And I tell people, don't try and do this by yourself. We've got so many great teachers out there who can guide you. And so that's why I wrote the book and I said, it's time. And I talk about things in there that a few years ago, they'd probably say, okay, get the net out. She's lost it. But I said, I don't care. I really don't care. I believe truly that we're all just perfect, powerful light beings. And everyone right now has the ability to transition into something that's happening on this planet that's so powerful and amazing. And it's a privilege to be here, not a punishment, if that makes sense.
Landria, we talk a lot about living in a simulated realm, or this is a simulated realm, and some people call it the Matrix, and the other side would be reality. What is your definition of the Matrix?
Yeah, so I actually do talk about that. I did explain what the Matrix is. It's not a program so much because we as humans, we can't wrap our head around how energy works. Basically, why would we be here if we're all one perfect energy field and we were in perfection prior to coming here? Why would we come here? It's choice. It's choice. So here's the rules of the game. How do I know what health is if I've never been sick? How do I appreciate it? How do I know what love is if I've never gone into darkness? The one doesn't judge. Source, you can call it anything you want, doesn't judge. It's exploring and expanding in every unlimited possible way. And we are one of those explorations. So we're connected. We are part of the creation and the creators. So we agreed to go into what I call unconsciousness. We went into unconsciousness, but you never lost your connection to that other side. You never lost it. You are still, people talk about the higher self. My higher self, as if it's something sitting out there by itself that you could call upon. I'm like, no, you're already it. You just brought veils down into unconsciousness. And so when you know that, you realize, wait a second, I just have to stop believing this stuff and go ahead and experience the abusive parent or the loss or the illness, and know that it has purpose. I signed up for it. It's the experience. It's the big classroom. So the matrix is a collective energy field too. So when we agreed to come here as a collective community, whatever we do in our individual, which is not real either, because there's no such thing as separatism or individualism, but we're experiencing that. That's part of the matrix illusion. What's it like to be separate, to look different, to be different? How am I going to react? And so we came here to experience that, but my reaction, my energy field affects absolutely everything and beyond, which means our experience as a collective is affected by that. So what happens is we're actually changing the program. So when you play Pac-Man, you come back, you don't keep getting eaten by the little Pac-Man down here. You already know to avoid that one and go up. So the matrix the game starts to go on a higher level. So it's not punishment. It's not a program that happens to us. We're actually creating it because we're experiencing it. And we're here to experience that new transition that has not been going too well up till this point. So other beings have come here with fewer veils to help elevate that frequency. They already come here with a higher frequency to help, pump things up a little bit. And everybody has a choice. So I hear people talk about spirituality. We're the spiritual ones, and they are. I said, you're already not spiritual if you're talking like that, because that other one could be the more awakened person than we are, and they're the teachers. And so we still separate ourselves as spiritual people and them and chosen ones. And we have all these labels, and there are no labels. So I think about this as a pyramid. We come from the top of the pyramid, which is limitless, but we'll use this. And as we go down here, there are more illusions. We're down here. We're at the bottom of the pyramid. There are illusions and darkness. And the more you break through them and the more you learn and understand, that's supposed to be fun. I don't know what we were thinking when we came here. Not so much fun. But as you break through them, you realize how amazing it is. You go into fewer illusions. That's where we have angels and higher beings, and which all is, I know this, a lot of people are going to be uncomfortable with this. They're illusions too. They're illusions. They're just on a higher level. It's all illusions. Anything that's created that comes in any kind of form is still an illusion. And so they're playing in our matrix. So if we were in a matrix, then what are angels and other beings? They're on another level and frequency, aiding us. They can't interfere with our game because that's part of the rules that we all agree to. But there's part of the illusion that plays in it too. So they can lend a hand when it's allowed. Same thing with, we extraterrestrials. They're just neighbors. And so there's rules. They know that we're playing our game. Hopefully we won't blow ourselves up and we can join the neighborhood as pleasant neighbors. But they have a hands-off policy too. And so it's really that simple. And I don't know why so many people are so afraid of it and, feel like we're being punished. We're not. It's a privilege to be here, an honor to go through this.
Can you talk about the law of attraction and how manifesting works?
I don't believe in the law of attraction. This is very upsetting for people. Law of attraction was coined like 100 years ago when people didn't know what quantum physics was. That's all it is. Wow, I've noticed that if I do this, I attract something. And I tell people, you attract nothing. Everything that you desire exists right now. It's not out there. So how can you attract? Like I said, you're dialing into a radio station. You can't attract classical music if you're tuned into rock and roll. You don't attract it. You have to go into that frequency. So I tell people, if you're in the basement of the mansion and there's a penthouse and you don't even know it's up there, it's not going to come. I'll bring the penthouse down. No, you won't. You've got to get on the elevator, raise your frequency, and get up to that penthouse. So there's nothing to attract, and there's no law. It's just frequencies and energy fields. And when you break through those illusions of what you think exists, and you realize, I am that, I am, you're all gods, this is just what is it in the Bible? And I never read the Bible, but this is a temple. And that energy field, that creation is in you, it is you. And people are afraid to say, I'm a creator. But ye are all gods, and these things you shall do and more. And it's said over and over. But who's telling us we can't do that? Other humans who don't want us to know that power because, they're playing the lower frequency game. So, yeah, I believe law of attraction it's so simple, but the biggest challenge for us, and this is why my whole life revolves around breaking through the fear. Fear is I don't I don't have control. I can't have that. I'm getting something I don't want, and not believing that you're actually doing it. So that creates fear. But if you knew that you were doing it and you knew how to, fear would have no effect on you anymore because you realize, oh, I can change that. Or, oh, what am I supposed to learn from this? Maybe it doesn't feel good, but I'm going to go through this because this is the game. And then you go to that next level, next level. So then you realize you're totally in control of the reality and you accept the game you signed up for. You accept this role that you took on and the player, and then you can take it anywhere you want. So you just shift into it. And that's what we have to do is deprogram the negative limiting thoughts that tell us that there's some other source separate from us that either grants us or is a technique. If I do this, it'll come to me. And that's why law of attraction doesn't work for most people.
Are there patterns of common limiting beliefs or illusions that people believe in?
Oh, absolutely. The number one is I'm not really the creator. Or they're afraid they'll, they'll be struck down by lightning for saying that. And when I tell people you're doing it, the first thing they say is, no, I'm not. Why would I do it? And I said, well, there's only one person driving those thoughts, and it's you. So nobody makes you angry or does anything to you. Have to choose those beliefs. You made me sad. I said, no, you chose to be sad. So people say, how did you go through all that loss? And I said, I call them my team, my family. They're just energy fields. Yeah, I miss them here in the physical world, but I don't feel that loss. I have a different story about that. And so people choose that story, and the story that they're told when they're kids is that stuff's not real. It's evil. As if evil is something separate. And here's the thing: if we're one thing, then what created darkness? The one is the darkness too. That makes people very uncomfortable. And I'm saying, well, that's good news. That means we're just exploring it. It has no power over you. And so you can make a different choice. You cannot bring darkness into a room of light. It's still light, but you can bring light into a dark room and light it up. That's the power of light. So, yeah, people are programmed. They may know it. They may know what we talk about, but they just don't know how to get there. They're so deeply programmed to think the worst case scenario. And so as long as you're focused on that, you continue to repeat those events and patterns in your life. And so you have to break through it. And like I said, it doesn't go away. You'll still have those thoughts. You'll still have the loss and the fear. But when you know how to handle it, it becomes a cloud that floats by that you go, there's that old program, there's the ego. Oh, there's what my mom told me. And then you start to see others differently. You realize that's not a jerk. That's a person in fear that's hurting in pain. And so when we go into compassion, we also raise our frequency. So now all of a sudden, other people aren't a problem anymore. They're just in a lower density, and it's not easy to be around that. So when you go into that space of compassion and love, and it's not easy to go there, you realize that, life is anything you want it to be. And you go into this, what I call acceptance. And then it just gets a lot easier. Like I said, it doesn't completely go away, but it makes more sense.
It sounds easy, but can you give us real practical tips to raise our
Yeah.
frequency?
Yeah. So I actually have a free master class, 4 proven steps. Now here's the issue with that. And I'll go through them right now. I can give you the steps, but it's the same thing. You'll know things, but the brain's going to always shift over to that negativity. And so that's an automatic programming that has to be deprogrammed. But the first thing I always say is you have to deal with the fear. So the second step is why law of attraction doesn't work. But if you don't get to the core of what your fear is, then you can't understand why it keeps showing up. I feel fear. Oh, I'm going to get over it. No, no. Why do you feel fear? And so when I work with my students, I back it up. We reverse engineer. I said, we're not going to blame anybody here. You're totally responsible for your reaction and feelings. And they don't like that either at first, but they're going, okay, that makes me powerful. So who are you mad at right now? Because, or who did this or what, whatever to you. And sure enough, it's always a parent or something like that. And it's, well, my mom or my dad. And I said, so can you look at where they came from? Why do you think they did what they did? They probably came from abuse, or they thought they were doing the best thing for you because they were told that was right, or they were in fear. And so we really look at that and they see that so totally different. And the release that we see is so amazing. I've had people, some of my students in their 60s, oh, literally in like weeks, go into a state of peace. And people have said, wow, you're a different person. They said, I'm not angry anymore. I stopped blaming. I stopped the chatter. The chatter stops. There's no more stories. And so when you go into this space and you break through that fear, you say, oh my gosh, it all had meaning and purpose. And so then you want to have an understanding, and you got stop battling that feeling. The second thing is we say, why doesn't law of attraction work? And like I said to you, it's like you're doing all these, I'm doing the right things, Landry. And I said, yeah, but what do you really believe? Because if we didn't go through that fear, break through that fear, you're still believing, you're going to be a bag lady, or you're going to, you know, uh, die alone, or whatever story you tell yourself. Because the ego wants answers. The ego wants to know what's going to happen and when. And sometimes you can't know. Whatever it is you desire, there's something even greater, and you got to let go of that too. So we go into the whole law of attraction thing, and we say, okay, we're just major manifestors. So can I feel the fear, let it float by, quit battling it, and say, you know what? I'm okay. I'm going to be okay with the next thing. And so we go into this space of acceptance, and people want that feeling to go away. And I tell them, be okay with feeling it and stop interacting with it. You're entangled with it. So know that that's the programming. And so we say, why do people, the third step is why do humans suffer? They don't know they're powerful. They don't believe it. They are in a world that tells them limitations. So everything you do, you're usually in the minority if you believe this stuff. We're called woo woo and all this other things, not so much anymore, because now we know through quantum physics and experiments that thoughts are things, and the experimentors change the results of experiments. The double slit theory, the light theory. Why is it a wave? Is it a particle? Wait a minute, it's changing, and it depended on the observer. What is that? These people aren't in woo woo. They're just scientists. Half of them don't even believe in God, but they see that energy is changing according to our observation of it. Now we're realizing we're way beyond mantras. So do mantras work? Yeah, if you believe it does. And so most people, if they don't use it that way, if you have a vision board, you can actually do more damage than good. If your belief is, I can't have that, every time you look at that big house, you go, "Ah, oh, God, I can't have that. What am I thinking?" So you're actually reinforcing the negative thoughts, right? So what we want to do is we want to go into and just really let go and stop trying to make decisions. You have to have clarity, definitely have to have clarity. What is it you really desire in life? And then open yourself up to, because over and over again, things come to me that I never could have made up. The ego can't make that up. It's not that connected. But the world of probabilities, that universe, will send you anything. And the last thing is, you have to put these things into practice. I'm an action girl. You know, what do they say? Good deeds without action. You have to. You're in a material world. So a lot of people, they want, I will win the lottery. Like, nobody's gonna knock on your door with the winning ticket. You have to buy it, and then you have to keep buying them, and you have to go into that state of knowing and then realizing, don't be lazy. So we want things to just come to us. We don't want to do the work. And I hate to tell you guys, you have to do the work. You didn't come here to just get the lottery. And I'll tell you one thing, he's probably going to watch this. One of my students won the lottery three times, 10,000, a million, and a million within 3 years. I know. I'm like, okay, he goes, "You've never heard this story." I'm like, "No, I've heard everything." I went, "Okay, you're right. I haven't heard this story." Won it 3 times. I said, "Why are you talking?" I'm coaching him. Why? Because what happens? The same thing you see that happens with lottery winners or anything else, the pattern comes back. The beliefs didn't change, the actions, nothing changed. He got an opening there. He worked at it, he got an opening, but the patterns and the other, habits, the thinking, the beliefs are all kicked in. So they will put you right back to where you were. And that's what happened to him. In fact, he's had all kinds of problems physically. We actually we did a little experiment. He was having horrible issue with a neighbor that was outrageous. I said, "So you think he's the problem?" I said, "So if this is an energy field, we're going to talk about this. I want you to send him light." I said, "This is going to kill you, but I want you to send him light, because I want you to look at this person as somebody who's in so much fear and density. And that, how can you go to a place of hate when you see somebody suffering and he's striking out at you because you're in a low energy field? So you guys are tuned into each other." I said, "We're going to go into this other." Okay. I made him start meditating every day. I didn't make him, but he went along with that. In 72 hours, the guy abandoned the home and moved out. Completely left everything. Left the furniture and everything. This is not unusual. We've had things happen within 24 hours. Another student, she was just so distraught, really didn't have a bad lifestyle, but not doing the manifesting things she could. I said, "Where's the issue? Let's talk about your parents." Her mom used to, use a belt on her. I said, "How many times did she actually hit you with the belt?" "Once." I said, "Wait a minute. I used to beg my mom to hit me with the belt." They're like, "Come on, you keep grounding me. Why don't you hit me with the belt like the other kids?" Are like, "No, this is much more painful." And we started laughing about it. And I said, "Your mom thought that was a good thing, because she was probably brought up that way. And so can you forgive her for that? She did it because she loved you." I said, "She only did it once, right? It probably just absolutely went to her core." it was probably so painful, so she kept threatening the belt. She went into a space and she never saw it that when, of course, we're making jokes about the belt and we start laughing. She went in touch to such a space of letting that go. The next day she goes out to her car, and sitting next to the car is a belt. She wrote me and said, she said, "You're not going to believe it." I said, "If that isn't the message to you, I don't know what is." And this is not unusual. This happens constantly because now we've removed these veils and there's a connection, there's a communication to all these other things that are going on right here. And now we're talking to it and it's communicating back to us, whether it's a loved one that's gone to the other side. It's like, yes, you get it now. And so this is just really fun stuff. So the last thing is you got to take action. You want the higher paying job, go get the skills. That's the beauty about being human. Do the work. You want a better body? I just started CrossFit. I work out every day anyway. Started CrossFit. It's agonizing. But if you take it up a notch, you got to put the work in, and it feels good, right? Why do athletes get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and run 20 miles to get the gold medal? That doesn't happen overnight. So you got to ask yourself, what is it you really want to achieve, and are you willing to take the action to do it? Because if you're not, and you're in this la la land that it's just going to come to you, choose something that you're willing to take the effort and do. And I guarantee you, the doors are going to open up for you like gangbusters, because your message through the action is expansion, learning, creativity, and you're going. That's a super high frequency, and it feels good. And then all of a sudden, stuff comes to you never imagined, and all these probabilities show up, and the right people, and the phone call, or the opportunities. And so those 4 steps, really, if you do just a few of those, if you just take your frequency up just a little bit, you see things happen, then you get more motivated to do it. So you start to shift that programming.
I was checking out your book, and you have a chapter on reincarnation.
Yes. So energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It's end of chapter, right? I mean, really. So if I'm not this, because this dissolves, so I can't be Landria, because Landria, eventually transforms it. But what happened with that energy that animates me has to go into something else. So what is it? Everything. So for one thing, now this is a little mind blowing, because we can't comprehend this. When we go outside of our bodies, when we're no longer a human being, you're actually connected to everything. You're actually aware of everything, because everything is one thing happening. And beginning of the book, when I was in my super awakened state, um, I get told things, and everybody here does too. They just don't listen to it. Got to make sure if you're not in that low frequency, that's not your ego talking, but you know the difference. And I was told everything is one thing happening. There's no such thing as time. So the specifics was one thing happening, not a bunch of things simultaneously happening, one thing happening. Past, present, future, there's no such thing as time. I went, okay, I think I get that. As a human, probably not really, but in other words, you go over, you are the other person. You are everything. And so we think of ourselves as individuals. So we're always like, I'm this, and then I'm this. When ultimately, I always say, we're taking it up a notch. We're going to talk high level. You're everything. But in order to experience being the human, we don't connect to that. Otherwise, I'd blow my mind trying to figure this out. But I have experienced being the other person. I've actually been with other people and actually experienced being that other energy field, not them, the person, but I actually realized I was them. And it was the most bizarre feelings. If anybody's experienced that, you know what I'm talking about. And it's a little mind blowing. But so how can you expand and know things and experience everything's adventure unless you go into some other form? And that's not a big deal. It's not scary. It's exciting to know that you get, by the way, you get to choose that. You are the participant with everything else that says, okay, what's the next adventure? What am I going to experience now? What can I do? And this is part of it. And some people have to come back here over and over again to master things by choice. By choice. I know it's tough to think, why would I ever come back here? But we do.
I ask that question to a lot of my guests, and it's pretty common that they say, no, I'm not coming back.
But part of it is, and I do believe there are quite a few here like that, like this situation, and that's some people don't have to come back here. They're doing it because it's part of another level that they can achieve by not having to help raise this frequency. And I want everybody to know that this isn't a mistake. You can't make a mistake. There's no judgment. There's no right, no wrong. There are no labels. We just are. But we're always pointing fingers, right and wrong. We've got to end that. And just, I'm not saying that you should sit down and say accept everything, but we spend more time pointing fingers at other people and separating ourselves than we do being the creators of the new way. If you don't like this, then don't focus on that. Energy fuels that situation. This is why I tell people, stay off those conspiracy channels, because it'll drive you crazy. And I've had people come back to my channel and say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm back. I don't know what I did. It's addictive. It's like, wow, we always stop to see the crash. And this is where the breaking through fear, you've got to be steadfast, say, okay, I want to do that, but I'm not going. I want to eat the junk food, but I'm not going to, because I know what the consequences are. And so when you put your attention, say, wait a minute, what could feel better than that? I'll do something really creative and expansive, because now I'm the change maker. Now I have the new invention. I have a business that trains people on how to create sustainable, animal-friendly, vegan businesses. We're online, always trying to make money. What if I change the world with that? I could make a lot of money, but what if making money meant I would never sell anything that's plastic? I would never use chemicals, and I help people to find those answers. So when you focus on that, it feels so amazing. It's so high energy, and you are not meant to suffer. You are abundant beyond your imagination, and there's no judgment in that. You can do good things and flourish in ways you never imagined. But the funny thing is, the higher frequency you go to, the less you care about it, because you don't need it anymore to be happy. But that's when it shows up. But yeah, so I believe that all of us have chosen this role, and everybody we interact with. And depending on the frequency you're in, you will see certain people show up exactly when you're tuned into that, and you need certain things. So we have to be totally aware, and that's called consciousness. We're going back into consciousness, and that's just awareness.
I was checking out your YouTube channel, and one of your recent videos is titled The Future of the Earth Matrix. So, what's in the future of this matrix?
Yeah. So, and of course, we use that word matrix, and like it has such a negative, connotation to it. I want to give people that control back, empower them, and just show them. And whether you make that choice or not is yours, but I want to open that door and show you that the future is 100% malleable. So, I've watched some videos on remote viewers, and they've tried to remote view the future. Usually they remote view locations and things like that, especially for the government. Where's the enemy hiding their weapons? And so they thought, well, what if we could remote view the future? And the interesting part was they couldn't come up with a consistent view of it, uh, because first of all, your beliefs will taint that. Like the experimenters, the results, if I believe something, could be different than another experimenter who has an effect on that energy field. So the remote viewers' beliefs already tainted that response. And one of the heads of like some major dude, I can't remember his name, said they realized that it's malleable. We're actually creating it. We can change it. So that's why I tell people watch out for psychics. I don't have anything against psychics, but they're only telling you what you're doing, and you can change anything. So if you go to them and you go into fear and you go, oh, I'm going to have this happen, or oh, I'm going to be wealthy, and then you sit back waiting for it to happen, you have to be interactive at all times. So I talk about the matrix and our future, and I tell them, you and I are creating it. So I'm counting on you to raise that frequency. Just you. That's all you have to do. You affect everybody around you. You don't try and, oh, I'm going to make my husband be, I get this all. He needs to be, spiritual. I said, no, he doesn't. You need to be spiritual by being okay with what he's choosing. So we have to go into this beautiful acceptance, because then we go into a community in a completely different world, and the matrix now becomes what I call that new earth. That's what the new earth is. We get to create it. No spacecraft's going to pick us up. That's not the game. We're totally in control. And so when we realize that you could live in a future, and by the way, your reality could be different than mine. There's endless realities. So I could live in a world that's so amazing. I still participate in the collective, but I may experience something so beautiful and amazing, and I get it. And somebody else could say, we're being tortured here and we're going to, what in a handbasket. So it's really telling you to not be afraid of anything. There's nothing to fear. And that whatever happens is the transition and the dissolving of the old ways, the old institutions, the old governments, the old whatever that's not working, financial institutions. It's dissolving. Don't be afraid of that, because what's coming, if we go into being creative and the change makers, is going to be so amazing. And you can look forward to that, but you have to participate in it. That's a choice.
Your book, The Rooftop Christmas Tree, ended up becoming a movie. How did that happen?
All right, first book, never wrote a book in my life. I knew it. I saw it. I actually saw it on TV in my head. I saw my name in big, letters. And you can tell me 1 in a million shot. I don't have, agents and whatever. Didn't know anybody. And I thought, no, it's a Hallmark movie. I know it. I wrote it, and got a hold of somebody who said, call my agent. So I did have an agent for the movie. They didn't know me, had no track record. She pitched it. We got rejected. I said, okay, it's not my producer. You couldn't tell me it wasn't going to happen. I knew it. 1 in a million, no, probably a billion shot. Next phone call, she says, are you sitting down? I said, yeah, why? And she goes, we just got accepted, but we're going green light. That means usually they'll buy it and they can sit on it, option it, and 7 years later, it's not a movie. She says, they're going to start filming in a few months. She says, we've never had anybody do that. One book in a few months goes green light. She says, that's insane. And I wasn't surprised. So I have expectations without requirements. So if it doesn't happen, I'm okay. I know that that's okay. But I still see it. I see it. And I had no, oh, you can't do that. That's insane. And so I'm in the Hallmark movie. Initially, it wasn't Hallmark. Then it got sold to Hallmark. Now it's on Amazon Prime. And it shows 24/7 because it's a holiday movie. It's based on a true story about a guy who puts a Christmas tree on his roof. A friend told me about this story, and it's true. And I created a romance around it to create a Hallmark movie. And so it was very exciting. Yeah. All things are possible, Jeff. All things are possible.
That's amazing. Well, Landria, after watching this podcast, people may have questions for you. Are you open to them? And if so, how should they reach you?
I would love that. LandriaAnka.com. I have free, I have the 4 Proven Steps to Manifest Anything free masterclass and a video series they can sign up for. It's landria.com/free-inspiration. The book is out and it's doing extremely well. People said, and I say this might be the last spiritual book you ever need to read. It just sort of like, okay, we're all powerful. I can do anything. These are challenges. It doesn't have to be a problem. This is how it works. I don't have to have the answers. And I would invite and welcome everybody to come over and interact with me. And thank you so much for having me here, because this has been a lot of fun. You're just like such a gracious host.
Oh, thank you. Well, Landria, before we wrap it up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Oh boy, it's like one of those Oprah questions, right? Yeah, no matter what you're feeling, no matter what you're going through, I promise you, it all has divine purpose. And when you can just let go and go into a space of faith and not fight those feelings, not fight that fear, and just realize there's something so amazing and that everything's about your response in every moment. So choose the highest, best possible one for yourself and others, and you'll go into a state of peace, and miracles can literally happen for you. That's all I can say.
Andrea, thank you for that message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.